If we should encounter an emergency, we will exit the building. There are doors off of either side of the lobby, and if for some reason those exits are not available, there's another exit behind council chambers here. Our muster point is located near the gazebo in Lions Park, and if evacuated for any reason, we will not re-enter the building until given an all clear from staff. Next, we'll move into our land acknowledgement. Councillor Bilodeau.
The town of Sylvan Lake respectfully acknowledges that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory, home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. These lands are traditional meeting grounds, gathering places, and travel routes for the many nations, including the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Métis, Saulteaux, and Dakota Sioux. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today, and for those who have gone on before us. We acknowledge and thank all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I want to acknowledge a couple things. Councillor Payne is under the weather today, so he will not be joining us. Hopefully he's feeling better soon. And also there's a couple agenda items in tonight that we will be suspending our regular procedure and doing a different type of discussion on. As we know, council meetings are normally fairly decision-based. And we have a couple items in here that would typically go on a committee of the whole agenda meeting. They're more discussion based. Our committee of the whole agendas are just so packed right now that we've moved a few onto here, but we will be falling a little bit into that committee of the whole discussion style, and I'll let you know when those take place. That is why it's just a logistics of how many things we can cram in one night situation. So thank you for adapting with that. Next, we have open microphone. Open microphone is an opportunity for a resident to express his or her concerns and feedback to council. And I see we have at least one signed up tonight for open microphone. Mr. Detre, we'll start with you.
Your Worship, Councillor, good afternoon. The update of a procedure bylaw is usually a document generating little excitement. However, new section 83 of the open microphone chapter from bylaw 1939-2026 is surprising as it states, members of the public may only speak on behalf of current agenda item during the meeting of attendance. Open microphone submission were until now a simple, fast, and easy way for residents to bring any topic of interest to the attention of the councils. Maybe more of interest to them than to the council, but the purpose of being a councillor is to be at least aware of residents' issues. Limiting this submission solely to topics already included in the agenda is depriving councillors from a fresh and unfiltered source of information, difficult to replace given how challenging it may be to contact all councillors outside of a council meeting. This restriction also goes against the principle of transparency, not the transparency of the working of the council, but the transparency of communication with residents. There is no obvious justification to this free speech limitation. Over the last 5 years, this boardroom heard countless submissions, some to the point, some humorous, some obviously interested, and some rather obscure. But none of these could be considered detrimental to the proper operation of the council or wasting councillors' time as, on average, less than one submission is received per council session. So, please eliminate subsection 83 from the proposed bylaw 1939-2026. Respectfully submitted, Mike Détare.
Thank you very much. Council, do we have any questions? I know we'll have the opportunity to chat about that later tonight and into second reading. Thank you very much. All right, we have no other names signed up on our open microphone tonight, so we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. Ms. Phillips.
Good afternoon. There are no additions from administration.
Excellent. Would someone like to move adoption of our agenda? Councillor Iwanicki?
Yeah, I'll move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Excellent. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll move into the consent agenda. Consent agenda is an item used to increase meeting efficiency on council. Any items recommended by administration to be moved on the consent agenda are identified on your agenda cover page with an asterisk. Council will just ask if there's any items you have extensive questions or would like to discuss or debate. We'll get those removed prior to the motion being made. So council, is there any items we'd like removed tonight? Seeing none, would someone like to move the consent agenda motion? Councilor Mearns, thank you.
Make a motion that the 2025-1209 regular meeting of council meeting minutes be approved as presented, that the 2026-01-06 committee of the whole meeting minutes be approved as presented, the council give first reading to bylaw 1938-2026, the records management bylaw as outlined in report AIR 1293, and that council repeal the following policies that are no longer in effect, being the sale and or consumption of alcohol on or off the town land or facilities policy R002001A, facilities management policy R002003, clothing and uniform policy H002007A, and records and information management policy L002002A as stated in AIR 1296.
Excellent, thank you. Council, any additional items to note in there? None. All those in favor and opposed, and that is carried unanimously. Next, we'll move along to procedural bylaw, first reading. This is one of those agenda items, as mentioned, that would typically be a committee of the whole. So council, in terms of process, will receive a presentation from administration, and then I think we should just go through page by page, and we'll ask for any questions and comments on each of those pages, one by one. So we'll just ask that you kind of order your comments or questions as we go through. We won't jump to the end first, so we all have a chance to talk about it, and hopefully we can get somewhere to move this item along. Ms. Phillips, I believe you're presenting this agenda item.
Yes, so what I've done is I've all the highlighted and crossed out sections. I just have little comments to make for them so that you know why the changes are there, and then again, feel free to really, there's a couple reasons we're bringing the procedure bylaw forward. One is that we had to remove codes of conduct, and we are creating a couple new policies and moving some of those items that were not pertaining to council behavior and moving them into other policies. So there's a few sections here. So with that, we also thought, hey, this is a good time to refresh, as well as some of the feedback we received from like George Cuff and just other experiences. So, on page 51, we talk about renaming the committee of the whole to governance and priorities meetings. We felt that George Cuff had mentioned his suggestion was to change it. Committee of the whole is very vague. It doesn't really tell you what you're talking about, whereas governance and priorities, or you create a different name, it gives a little bit more clarity. And it also has, you know, the GNP meeting kind of sounds a little nicer than cow. So if council is open to that one, that was one we wrote into here. I will mention that we did miss this on section 16. We did miss one there, and there might be others in there, but just, yeah. Page 52, we just added definition of virtual attendance to make it easier to use later on in the policy or in the bylaw. Section S8, or sorry, section 8, we updated due to changes in the legislation. We now need to, and we need to actually change it a little more because you actually need the oath prior to the training and then that prior to the orientation. So we'll reword that slightly further for the second reading, but that's why that changes there. On section 11, we made minor adjustments due to the stat timeline. Sometimes the day after doesn't always work so just basically reflecting that. I really need the policy in front of me because I'm mentioning sections and I don't know what they are. So section 12, just clarification around the land acknowledgement. We didn't really have this in our procedure bylaw, and if we're going to do it at our meetings, I thought that should be recognized in there. And I don't know if you like this or not, but I also added, well, the option to opt out, as well as if you are going to, because we do allow you to bring your own acknowledgements, but I wondered if you wanted that to be reviewed by the the chair of the meeting, just to ensure that it adheres to the overall sentiment of our land acknowledgement and the values of council. And again, everything I've added in here is up to council's discretion. Section 16 through 22, and throughout the document, we've updated Committee of the Whole to Governance and Priorities meeting. Section 25, we just added some clarity around quorum to be able to waive the 15-minute timeline. If we knew coming in tonight that there was going to be 4 members missing, we could just call it right away rather than waiting 15 minutes. Section 30, clarity on excused absences. We did have this come up around discussion. That vacation is not considered an excused absence, it's just an absence. So you're allowed 2 missed council meetings and 2 missed, if we move forward, governance and priorities meetings or committee of the whole meetings a year. And it's okay to have holidays and miss those meetings. We're not saying you shouldn't take holidays, but it's not an actual excused absence. Section 32. This one was for virtual attendance. Instead of having to ask every single meeting to attend virtually, the idea was that between the 2 meetings, the Committee of the Whole and the council meetings, that you could attend 3 virtually. Again, if you want to change this, 3 each, or however you want to reword it, or if you do. But the idea being, we still want to control that to make sure that people are in the room for the most part. I have seen where you have snowbirds and they're gone for 6 months. I think that it's good to have some requirements around in-person attendance, but maybe those first 3 are permitted without, and then after that needing permission to attend. Section 39, this was one I just added, just again an experience thing, that if you're attending virtually and it's closed session, just to ensure that confidentiality, that you have a camera on to show that you are in a secure space, again up to your discretion. Section 41, governance and priorities meetings, we did an update there that if the deputy mayor is unavailable, we actually put the mayor as the chair. If you're not in that deputy mayor role, you're not necessarily ready to jump in and chair a meeting, whereas the mayor is usually more prepared, and the deputy mayor is. If you're the next up and coming for deputy mayor, you may not be prepared. So delegations, we added a time limit of 15 minutes, and that would be really 15 minutes for them to present, or up to 15 minutes. It still allows council to have time for questions or as long of a discussion as you choose. It just helps limit, and then also that discretion to extend as needed. And then section 79 was added the option to attend open. We actually had it in there, you could not attend open microphone virtually, and we've allowed it. So I am a firm believer that if the policy or bylaw is not right, we fix it. We don't just ignore it. So recommending we change that. Section 83, and I do want to thank Mr. Dedere for his comments, but I am going to ask if council would please refrain from discussing this at this time, because it is a discussion that will happen, a little more information enclosed, but we will have an opportunity to discuss it before second reading at the next council meeting, or first reading if we don't do first reading tonight. So we will have the option to change, but I'm just asking if we can bypass this, and we'll update further at the next meeting, and I'll update council this evening. Section 86 is around recorded votes. So before we had our council meetings recorded and available to the public, council made the decision to record all votes. This isn't your standard process, and I know some see it as transparency, but the reality is once a motion is passed, it is your motion. Whether you voted for it or against it, it's your motion. And if someone wants to know how you voted, you can say, I actually voted against it, but ideally you should be supporting the overall motion. There is the availability to go online and watch our council meetings either live or a year ago you can watch, and if it was, I believe we keep them on the website for a year, but even after that, as long as they're retained in records, you can you can do a request to view those. Recorded votes are typically used. You can always call for a recorded vote. So before the question is called, you can say, I'd like a recorded vote. It's more commonly used when it's something that's more controversial, or you're just really passionate about something and you want everyone to know, this is how I voted. I did not support this. But usually with governance, the recommendation is you don't actually record every vote. So that one I put in there again, up to, and this one's more my opinion. I worry about that the divisiveness of it, because it doesn't matter how you voted and who voted which way. Again, it is your vote, so it's all about council, so. Section 148 to 150 is one of those sections that I mentioned came from the Code of Conduct, as well as sections 159 to 165. Section 171, we're going to try and make we thought we'd write it in here so it becomes a regular practice, but to share most, and it won't be all, but most closed session items on the SharePoint site ahead of time so that you have an opportunity to read them. Sometimes there's one tonight, we just didn't have the information. It was more of an informal conversation, or if there's something that's really highly sensitive that we don't want any risk of, or we want to decrease the risk of it leaking, that we may not share it, but for the most part, we're going to try and place those documents on the SharePoint site for council in advance. And then the confidential information under section 172 to 175 is also from the Code of Conduct. So that is a summary of the changes, open to council's discussion.
Excellent, thank you.
Oh, sorry, if I can add one more thing. While this is on the table as well, if there was anything else that council wanted to make changes to, this would be a great opportunity to do so.
Sure. A question to start off with, but we will go through page by page, I'll just say.
Oh,
Okay, let's start that process and just start with the first couple of pages up to the end of definitions. Really the big change in here is how do we feel about the change in name to governance and priority, and is there any other questions or comments around those definitions? Comfortable? Yeah, Councillor Oostende.
I didn't love it at first when I first read it. I thought, what does that mean? And then I thought more and more about it. I thought, yeah, it makes total sense because it is about prioritizing, especially that word in the title. The only concern I have, and I want to think more about that, would there be an alternate name? And I haven't thought of one. But the word governance, yeah, it's a clear definition. But when people read that, do they really say, yeah, I know what that means? Like a title should always give you a strong sense of meaning when you read it. And so a person in our community, if they read, oh, the council's got a governance and priorities meeting, I totally understand priorities. They must be working on priorities. But when I think, oh, my council is getting together to talk about governance, like, what are they doing? Like but I do understand it, and I like the title for myself, but I'm wondering, is there any other words that speak to the public better, and I'm just chewing over it.
I'll say I do like it, only because this is fairly standard terms with other municipalities. And committee of the whole is one that seems to be going away in most. So coming from a different municipality, this would be pretty standard terminology. And I think there's some benefits to that. But I agree, I wouldn't exactly know what you're talking about on governance, but it's so different agenda to agenda. It'd be hard to capture that.
That's a problem, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on those first couple of pages? Nope, seeing no, let's go into page 53 of the agenda package, 4 of the bylaw. Concerns? Sure. Councillor Manicki?
I just have a question about the changes to 8 or section 8. So it references shall take place after the mandatory training, but I can't find where or what like I know having done it, but I couldn't find anywhere what the mandatory training is. I think it might be helpful to have that identified, even if it's just making it a separate defined term.
What we can do is reference the legislation.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So we can add that to for when we bring it back.
Perfect.
Great point. And we'll see some updated language on the second part of that as well. Anything else on page 4? I'm going to go by pages of the bylaw number because I know that sometimes the admin pages don't match. Okay, we'll move along to page 5. These are just language updates, but if there's anything else. Page 6, questions or comments? I'll just comment, I really appreciate the change to the quorum, number 25. I was a part of that meeting that we knew wasn't happening and had to come in and sit and wait. And I remember I was so frustrated because I drove in, I had to drive in from out of town. I was out of town for something, drove for the meeting, waited that I knew wasn't gonna happen, and then left town to go back to Calgary again. I thought, this is so silly. So, appreciate that. Councillor Ostindi, sure.
Just from personal experience in number 30, talking about reasons someone might be absent, and I know we're not trying to make an exhaustive list, but you know, I was absent once because of a weather event, unable to travel. So, you know, I'm just wanting to make sure that those kind of thoughts would work yeah.
Councillor Mearns.
I guess just along those lines, I would look at it as, what was your original event? And no one can predict weather, right? But you're still out of town, so I don't even know, like, if weather would be something that would be valid, right? I don't know. For me, myself, if I was away for a personal reason, I planned on being back, but I couldn't because of weather, that's on me. So I wouldn't, because we can go side to side on that, and then other items come up. I would like to be able to stick to this so that we know it's pretty hard and fast. That's my opinion anyway.
Any other thoughts on that one? Councillor Bilodeau, you have a thinking face on, and I'm curious what it means.
As a new counselor, so we are only allowed to be gone from 2 committee of the whole and 2 regular council meetings. So if I kind of schedule my vacation time and I can't work around those days, I'm gonna have to eat some of that up to do vacation, which in my position is a reality because the time that we get off during the summer is when we are busiest as a company. So I then don't like the idea that I may kind of max out my time away from council in a year because I'm just trying to get vacation in, and then I might, like Ian, I go somewhere personal and I can't get back because of weather, so I'm on the fence. I understand there's that control there, but...
Would not, though, the ones you're speaking about, if they were missed because of work demands, those would already be excused under this. This is purely vacation.
Yes, so I'm not saying that I would be excused for any work situation. I'm just saying our line of work goes on the opposite of kind of the counselor's schedule of time off, like actual time off that we have flexibility, which is over the summer. That's when our company is at busiest. So we're able to get away in the winter, but that's when we have council meetings every week. So I'm just saying, I'm worried that something that I can't control cuts into the time that I might book off, because I've only got a limit. Just food for thought. I might be the only one.
Yeah. What do we think? Councillor Winicki.
Not that I want to turn it into like every meeting we have this come up, but could we not throw in some language in there that just says something along the lines of unless otherwise excused by council or something like that? Because then at the beginning of the meeting, we could have a quick motion just to say this absence is excused, even if it doesn't fall under.
And I will say the current other category, you can put in for anything. It would just have council's discretion. So like a specific travel delay could be entered in, whether council accepts that and thinks this was reasonable. Yeah, they would have that opportunity, that other category, if it's unavoidable, really is what. It does, absolutely. Yeah, Councillor Johnson.
I'm not a big vacationer, so this might be a little bit from that. Definitely scared of flying, so. But I think that this has to be hard and fast. I don't think we want to create gray areas. I'm with Councillor Mearns. I think that we all understood that when we put our names up for election that we would be committed to the role, and the rules are the rules, and I'm just a rule guy in that matter. I think we know what we're getting into. We committed to do this, and so we have to I believe we need to keep this where we're not trying to play these kind of gray areas, and then, like Councillor Iwanicki said, voting for our colleagues if we excuse it or not. I think this has to be a black and white issue, and we have to accept our role as elected officials, which is we can't really miss meetings, which I think is, as if, you know, if I wasn't on council, that's what I would expect from council. So that's where I'm at.
And I will just throw in one more thing to complicate the discussion. But the other side of it is adjusting. I do actually side a little bit of that firm rule. I think that makes our life easier, and it's not a case-by-case basis. We could adjust the allowable meetings. I'll say my thought process of the 2 of each is really that is 4 weeks of vacation, which would be pretty standard for a job, on top of your weeks in the summer and your weeks of this. How many weeks is reasonable of vacation in a job, really, was what where we kind of came to that. And the likelihood of, and really, because we only meet that 1 day a week, it's probably 5 weeks of vacation time is about what that gap is per year, plus the ones that are already built in. To me, that feels like a good limit, but council does get to choose. Is too little of each type of meeting? Is it too many? That's, you know, the other side of the coin is, if we want it to be black and white, is that number right? 2 of each type of meeting. And for me, I feel like it is, but we do get to choose that. Yeah, Ms. Phillips.
I just want to point out that there are also those months where there's no meeting on the 5th, right? So that adds those few extra weeks, that if that helps. So.
Councilor Mertz.
The only thing I could think of maybe, and it may help, it may not, and it might be just slicing it a different way, is instead of being specific on 2 governance and priority meetings and 2 council meetings, 4 meetings instead of the specifics, right? I don't know if that helps or not, but that might be, you know, a little bit of wiggle room.
It does. I'll say my challenge with that is, if you were to miss 4 regular council meetings, and we only have, I don't know, we have probably 20 a year, 21 a year, that is a substantial part of the decision-making time. I have much more tolerance for missing a committee of the whole than a decision-making meeting. You've missed a quarter of your year, essentially, if we cap that differently, because we don't meet that. It feels like it's frequently, but we don't meet that frequently, really. Yeah.
On that note, could we go the other way? And I'm just thinking for flexibility, could we go the other, like we could put the firm on 2 for council, because I absolutely agree that's where decision-making happens. But if you go the other way, I was thinking, oh, what if I want to take 3 committee of the whole? It would be nice to have that swing a little bit for flexibility. And I'm speaking personally. I don't even know if I'm going to get, because I've never had 4 weeks away, honestly. I don't know why I'm actually, but we're talking about the term of 4 years. And so, you know, my husband and I have actually had these conversations that we're getting older and we'd like to have that time. And then I went, oh, now I'm on council and, well, I actually can't, you know. So just, could we have the swing the other way then with committee of the whole or governance and priorities meetings?
Good question. What do we feel, council? Councilor Ostindi and then Johannesson.
Yeah, I'll just throw in, I like the idea of some flexibilities, because it is hard to sometimes plan. You know, we think about vacation here, we're imaging Mexico beaches, but I practically never have a vacation like that. Mine are completely family-based, you know, and you have to often work around family. When your mother turns 90, it only happens on a certain day at a certain time, and that's it. And whether it's a regular meeting or a special meeting or a committee of the whole meeting, you know, that flexibility can be important. And each one of us has different styles of holidays and how we take breaks in our lives. And so I'll throw that. I like the idea of that flexibility concept. The other one I've noticed, you know, 30 years ago, if I went to Vancouver, you could truly call it just a family visit, vacation, holiday, whatever. When I go to Vancouver now, I have an elderly mother who's 91, and I am doing family care. And when I go to Saskatchewan nowadays, instead of 30 years ago, my mother-in-law is 94. I am truly doing family care. It's no longer a holiday. So when you see me play, I'm not playing a game in my future absences. It's just reflecting the phase of life I'm in and the phase of life my family's in and the bias we have towards family. So these are things I've been thinking about, in terms of family care, because that's definitely in my world. And sometimes if I could argue when I go to Vancouver, what percentage of the time am I doing family care? Oh yeah, Ian, sure, you were helping your mom the whole time. Well, it actually comes pretty close to true. However, yeah, I might sit at a coffee shop. Now, is that family care? No, that's kind of holidays now. Oh, I visited my brother as well, or he came over to mom's house. Is that family care? Like, I really thought about that a lot, because that is very strong in my world. So I'm thinking some more about it.
Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with this because I think that, I have a young daughter, and we don't want to put her in daycare for a number of reasons, and so I have to plan my life around that, with council being my priority. And when I decided to run for council, I made a commitment to myself, to the people that voted for me, and to my family, that council, this would be a priority for me, and I would have to figure out the rest. So I'm not trying to be a jerk to anyone, but I think we need to be hard and fast on this. I can actually get behind the 3 committees in the whole, and the one, I think that muddies the waters a little bit, but it can maybe help people plan a little bit better. I would still say 2 and 2 for me is the way to go, and I think that we're adults here, and we all have our own issues and things we have to deal with and things that come up. But I think that we have a commitment to the people of Sylvan Lake, and we have to make council a priority. I mean, Joe's got a busy life, but he's here all the time, and he's figuring it out, driving to Calgary all the time, and then trying to get whipped back here and whipped to Calgary. So he's made a commitment to be here, and I think that we all have to do that. I don't think we want to play, case by case. I don't think we want to get into gray areas. I think that we just need to say this is it, and we got to figure it out. We all signed up for this. We get paid pretty good money for a very part-time job. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
So let's do a bit of a speed round just to get to some consensus here. If you could say what that number is comfortable, really 2 and 3, or 2 and 2. And I heard 2 and 2 is your preference. Yes.
I just had some some potential wording that would just create that flexibility if you.
Sure.
So one thought I had just listening to the conversation is that you may miss up to 4 meetings combined between the 2, with a maximum of them being 2 council meetings. So you could miss 4 committee of the whole and no council, or 3 and 1, or 2 and 2, but never more than 2 council.
So let's.
It's kind of what I heard, but I don't know if.
I think that's right. Let's give those 3 options in a speed round of current 2 and 2, flexibility of increasing the cow, or the flexible combination of 4. If you were to give a preference, just with your mic.
Yeah, I can get behind. I don't want to increase it to 3 and 2. It needs to be 4. I can get behind. You can't miss more than 2 regular, but you could do 3 and 1, so I can get behind that, but not more than 4.
Councillor Stindy.
Yeah, I concur with that thought, and I agree with Councillor Johansson. The idea that we did make a strong commitment to this process, and so in all the comments I make, I want to hold that high too, and that's why it's a family decision. We make these family decisions.
I like that flexible option. I don't think in my entire 12 years at council I have exceeded that combined, and I've had 2 kids while I've been on council, so I feel fairly confident I can do this on a year-by-year basis, and appreciate scheduling life around it. Yeah, Councillor Iwanicki.
I'm fine with it as written or with a bit of modification. Yeah.
I like Dawn's idea. I'm looking for the flexibility if I need it, and that's what comes when you've owned a business for 26 years and have had no time away, and I don't have little kids at home. So I was looking for the freedom. I also have council as my priority. So I'm just trying to find the best blend, because I don't want to miss a council meeting. No. I don't want to be out on any decision-making. So I'm looking just for the balance of the two. So what Dawn suggested to me would be the best blend to just give a little extra flexibility, I guess.
Yeah, I'm fine with Ms. Phillips' suggestion.
That's great. I think that takes care of page 6. Thank you for that. Let's move along to page 7. Any edits or notes there? Councillor Stindy.
I'm just trying to picture, when would someone want to be on an electronic video conference meeting when it's not a vacation or we're not doing council business? I'm trying to picture that. What are we trying to accommodate there?
I think this accommodation, and maybe I'll jump to Ms. Phillips and then I'll go to Councillor Mearns, is really specific to not having to ask before. So if I was away on a work demand, right now I have to submit the form and you have to approve it at the start of the meeting.
Just for the
and
work.
this would mean I wouldn't have to do that if I hadn't, you know, had a conflict, which it definitely happens in this role, that we're in a different community doing our job. That the form wouldn't have to necessarily go in every time before I could vote in favor of the agenda package is the challenge. Councillor
Okay,
Mearns.
so I can, yeah, so that's great, that explanation, but I will give you a prime example. In July this year, I am not on vacation, but my wife is. I will be working in BC. So I would attend virtually, I'm not on vacation, I'm working. Yeah. And so that would be an instance like that.
Ms. Phillips, do you have anything to add to that one?
No, that's exactly it, is if you're working, or I just joked, or if you were stuck in your driveway, you know, with snow. So. But if there was an excusable reason or a time when you could accept it with permission, so not vacation, but any other reason, if there was a reason you needed to attend virtually, you're sick, you have a bit of a cold, you don't want to give it to everyone else, so you'd rather Zoom in, attend virtually, that you could. I am going to add in here, though, that you need to advise the mayor and CAO, because we should be ready for it as well.
Yes, and actually, if I could suggest that wording, advise the mayor and the clerk would also be very important, because that's really who has to make sure that we've got, you know, all things set up to hear you correctly. If we know there's a councillor attending virtually, I know there's a little bit extra care that goes into making sure our IT setup is tested. That'd be great. Okay, hearing no objections to that. Move along to page 8 of the bylaw, really keeping the camera on. And I do appreciate the change to 41B. Just, I can think of another example. There was a committee of the whole right after the election that the deputy mayor had said, you know, we discussed, and it was really an orientation one, and most of the items were mine. It made sense that I chaired that meeting. We made that choice, but actually the bylaw didn't allow for it. I should not have stepped in to chair that, even though we decided that was going to make for a smoother meeting. So it just gives that option. Any challenges, questions? Great. There is no notes on the next couple of pages, so I'll just ask page 9, 10, and 11, if we have any questions or notes. We'll group those. Seeing none, we've got a minor edit here on page 12. Any concerns? Okay, page 13, this is where we will talk about open microphone, but we're okay with deferring that discussion, just one meeting to have some additional advice on that. I do think the open microphone by virtual attendance is great. It's our current practice, so. Great, we'll hop along to page 14. Really the biggest note here is on the recorded votes. So we put this in place before we had digital technology to record our meetings. Now that we've had that, we've been able to put the actual recordings in place, and that's part of our bylaw. How do we feel about removing that specifically from the minutes? I just think of the trees we might save, but. Okay. Next, we'll move to page 15 and just jump in, council, if I'm flying too fast on these. And let's do 16 at the same time because there's no major updates proposed here. Great. Page 17, 18 of the bylaw. Great. 19 and 20. This is the imported piece from a previous code of conduct bylaw that no longer exists. 21 to, let's just go to the end. I actually don't have any major notes because these were just full imports from other bylaws. Is there any questions, comments, or items we want to discuss through the end of the bylaw? Nicely done, council. That one could have been a runaway item. So in terms of next steps, I am personally comfortable going forward with first reading. If council has a comfort, we could put that motion on the floor, and then it would come back at a later meeting with edits and another opportunity to talk. We're obviously missing Councillor Payne, so we'll be able to receive that input from him, but it just allows us to get the next edit of the document with those minor changes we've requested and really see them in writing. How do we feel about that? Great. Would someone like to make a motion for us? Councillor Mearns. Thank you.
I make a motion that the council approve first reading of procedure bylaw 1939-2026 pursuant to AIR 1298.
Excellent. Final call for any debate or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, council. We will bring that back. Next, we'll move into the proclamations policy. It is the birthday girl, Miss Reynolds, presenting to us. Also appreciate the items that were left on our desk around the questions. So we'll again hear a presentation and then we'll go through these questions one by one in a committee of the whole style conversation before we have a motion on the floor again. So, thank you, Ms. Reynolds.
Good evening, members of council. This evening, I'm here to discuss the current proclamations policy issued by the town of Sylvan Lake with future options for council to consider and discuss in regards to proclamations. In 2025, 28 proclamations were recognized by the town. On your desks, as Mayor Hansen has said, questions are provided to guide the discussion of different options council may review. Let us begin on question 1. Would council like to continue issuing proclamations on behalf of the town of Sylvan Lake?
Great. Let's just do a speed round. We'll start with you, Councillor Mearns.
I do not want to continue with issuing proclamations.
Councillor Bilodeau.
That's straightforward. I'm indifferent. I feel like I've listened to it. I don't fully support it. I don't have any real reason to get rid of it, but I think time is of the essence, and that's probably the biggest reason. And given all that we have had on our agendas so far, time is important. So I would support what Tim said, I guess.
Councillor Iwanicki.
Speed round. Yeah. I'm in favor of proclamations in the sense that they draw awareness to issues. When I'm looking at a list of like 30 some odd things, I don't know if we're accomplishing that. So that's where I start to get a little lost in the weeds here. I'd either be in favor of eliminating it entirely or being a lot more selective, as harsh as that is to say.
Thank you. I concur. I actually, my vote would go towards eliminating proclamations, and my thought process is there is no item on this list that I feel passionate about that I feel without a proclamation, my hands would be tied when it comes to celebrating it. I still have the choice to attend everything that I'm passionate about, and I'll say there's some proclamations that have come across my desk over the years that I'm a little bit uncomfortable with and haven't been my first choice. So the same, if we choose to keep them, I'd like to really limit that criteria to give us some, to make it more valuable and impactful. But I also feel like during Seniors Week, we can still celebrate Seniors Week, even if it doesn't start with a proclamation. I'm not sure anyone is paying attention to the proclamations done in a council meeting, and this is a decision-making table, not necessarily a proclamation table. So my vote is no. Councillor Ostindi.
It's interesting, given your comments, given what I'm going to say, because I like the selectivity that mentioned already. For proclamations, I wasn't anti-proclamation in the sense of need to get rid of them, but my leanings were left to the mayor, and the mayor is saying that you are able to celebrate these campaigns or events or celebrations without making the proclamation. So just as you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, a mayor could even put out a press release or could put out a comment and it'd be outside of the meeting. But I thought about that, you know, how much do I as a councillor want to be involved in the proclamation, or we as a group to indulge even more into it? No, I supported the idea that the mayor has a unique position. They are uniquely voted in by the citizens, a little bit different than the rest of us as councillors. So I like the idea of them taking charge. So maybe just as we're thinking, if there wasn't proclamations, I would encourage a mayor to put out press releases or ways that we can bring about celebrations that are important to our community. Because, for instance, we could say, I was thinking about the idea of, in this policy it says it has to be tied to the community, some group of our community. Well, we don't, in my understanding, have a cancer group in our community. We used to, I was involved in it, but we don't anymore. And so, you know, we would never have a proclamation for cancer. Like, that didn't make sense to me. But we could have a press release for cancer regardless of proclamation. So those are my thoughts right now.
So I think we should get rid of them altogether. I mean, the biggest problem for me in our society today is we have a lot of virtue signaling of let's do this to make these people feel good. And then when we do that, other people are pissed because they don't have their thing. So like, I don't see Christian Heritage Month on this. And if I were to bring that forward to do a proclamation for Christian Heritage Month, then I would get hate, and then people would want every religion to have a month or a day or a week. So I don't really think, like, you look at this list and it just seems very watered down. Like, every day and week is something new and different. So I think it's, I don't think it's needed. I don't think that it accomplishes anything. I think that as a society, we should treat people the way that we want to be treated. We should have one proclamation, and it should be the Golden Rule Proclamation, which is what I had when I was in elementary school. So I would vote to get rid of proclamations altogether. I think we're out of line to do that. I don't think it does anything, and I think it's often just done to make people feel nice about themselves, or we could just actually just be nice to people, and then we'd all be a lot better. So yeah, that was a long story, but that's it.
So I think I heard proclamations are no longer. Any mass objection to that? There was a few it depenses, so I want to make sure that if those it depenses after a round have changed to passionate yeses, we haven't. Councillor Iwanicki.
I just would like an additional comment on it. Assuming we're getting rid of them entirely, then that's fine. If there was any appetite to keep them on a limited basis, I don't like the idea of delegated authority for it, because it moves into another can of worms that suddenly we may not agree with collectively with the proclamation, and then what do we do about it? So, not that it's tying our hands, it's a proclamation. I hate to say it's pretty meaningless, but just food for thought. If we're getting rid of it, then ignore everything I said. And sorry for wasting your time.
That's great. Are we comfortable with that direction that I'm hearing? I'm really looking for Councillor Ostindi and Councillor Bilodeau, because they were the other ones that were.
I think after I heard Ian's idea of making sure that you, specifically, I guess, would be, we can still do the work to make sure, there's important proclamations in there, and there's a lot that are really, yeah. So I think we don't want to do a disservice to our community. So if we can remove the proclamations, but still do the work in another form to recognize the important proclamations, I think that we're achieving a lot that way.
Now, one of the other options that we always have available to us is, say we put in, do we need a policy to say we don't do proclamations? Probably, to have that in place. And then we could schedule this to reassess in a year or in a period of time. And just put it back on our calendar to do a touch base at a committee of the whole a year and a bit from now to say, hey, have we felt like we've been missing something in the meantime by not doing that? And it would give us a touch base back to just reconsider. And we do that for many decisions around council that, yes, we think we're going to go try a different way, but we want to make sure that it's not lost on us forever and that we don't have the opportunity to bring it back. So we could, see how we feel after a period of time. Councillor Oostende, any thoughts on that?
I like that direction, yeah.
Ms. Phillips, is that something you're comfortable with, that I've committed to having this come back up on the schedule?
Yes, so we can just either end conversation here and bring back a motion to rescind the policy and at the same time bring a new one, or you can make a motion to actually rescind the policy now and with direction to bring back the policy, an updated policy to state that we don't have proclamations.
I would be happy to see us make that motion. We may as well, and then see that come back just to make sure that's very clear for us.
So a motion to repeal proclamations policy L002-001, or sorry, -016, and bring back a new policy stating that the town of Sylvan Lake will not do proclamations.
You ordered that wonderfully. Would any councillor like to make that motion? You could just say yes, and we could use her wording.
I worded it for you.
Councillor Oostende has made that motion in the wonderful words that Ms. Phillips provided us with. Council, we have a motion on the floor now. Yes?
I just want to be clear here. So what we're doing is, as of now, we're getting rid of the proclamations, and what are we bringing back? Like, what do we?
Ms. Phillips.
Just a new policy that essentially states that the town does not do proclamations. So within that policy, it'll state that although we value these organizations and, but we will not do proclamations.
Okay, perfect.
That's great. And I will note, we do have a couple other avenues. One being, there's a request form on our website to have Mayor Council attend and celebrate an event or celebration in town. We also have a lighthouse policy that's being worked on for the lighthouse could potentially be lit up to recognize different causes. This is not the only avenue, but this avenue is time to be updated. Wonderful. We have a motion on the floor by Councillor Oostende. All those in favor and opposed, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Council, how are we feeling? Do we need a break? The next item could take longer, so I just want to make sure we're okay. No one's calling for it. Great. Let's move down to the council remuneration policy amendments. Ms. Phillips.
All right, so as with the procedure bylaw, I've done the same for the remuneration policy. And again, this is an opportunity. You don't have to accept the changes I'm recommending. Some of them are from the code of conduct. And it is also that opportunity that if you'd like to see any other changes within this policy, to have that discussion here. So section 2.3 is clarity on the mandatory training and conferences. I didn't put a lot of information in this one because I didn't know if there was anything beyond AB Munis and your training plan that you work on, if there's anything else that you think should be mandatory, if there's any other wording in there. Appendix B, section S3, E to H, provides clarity on the full-time status of the mayor. So the committee that reviews our remuneration prior to the election made the recommendation that the mayor's position be full-time. From what I understand, actually, this position has been treated as full-time the last 2 full terms of mayor. there's different ways to approach this one. Right now, it just has a wage, and that's it. And it's an honorarium, so the position is not, you cannot give vacation hours or vacation pay to an honorarium position. So what I've written in here is that the average work week is 37.5 hours. That's only because that's what managers work in the building. It doesn't have to be that. This is just a starting point, which is 1,950 hours a year. It could be adjusted to 35 or 1820. It probably is many more than that. But also very clear that it's not a Monday to Friday position. There's no expectations of an 8 till 4:30. It's really, you might work 60 hours in 1 week and 15 the next. You might be working from home. You're working evenings, weekends. You're attending events. Everything that a mayor does is in that position. So a lot of flexibility around it. But I didn't want to lose sight of the fact that in a 4-year term, a mayor should be able to take holidays. So even though they may not be called holidays, I didn't know if it should be lieu days. Right now, management get 8 lieu days in lieu of the overtime we work. So the evening, I think we talked about how usually that, we've made that up in a few months, but we also get holidays. The mayor doesn't. Did we want to go with 10 or 15 days plus all that flexibility, or do we want to go with more of a, if you went with 35 hours a week is 1820, knowing that that could be a few weeks off here and there because it's often 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week because so just some direction from council is going to be needed on that one. Or you could just like how I worded it and say, yeah, let's go with X number, or maybe you think 15 days is too little and it should be more. 15 is the starting point for the town. Again, not an employment position, so it's unique, but just to give that guideline. And then Appendix C, Section 2, G to H is copied from the Code of Conduct. And then apparently the training is also in the Section 7C. There's a reference to it as well. And that's really the changes.
Excellent. Council, let's follow our practice of the night, and we'll just go through page by page. In the first 2 pages, I'm not seeing anything. Jump in if you do, please. Page 3, we've got the addition of just spelling out the Alberta Munis Fall Convention as mandatory. Is there anything else we feel should be included? Councillor Iwanicki.
Sorry, I thought you raised your hand. So I was going to say the same thing. Oh, cool. I am curious about 2 things with respect to the training plan. One is, what do we want to, I think this requires sort of a discussion. What do we want to do with the training plan, right? Like, do we want to just leave it wide open and people can do whatever they want, or set some direction on what should be involved in training, especially for newly elected members in the future? And then the second would be, what is exactly the consequences of not attending these things or completing the training plan? That I'm unclear of.
Yeah, well, let me answer that. There is none. Because code of conducts don't exist. It's a tough world.
Well, okay, yes, yeah, sure. But at the same time, attendance is mandatory, right? So could we not codify something that says you could lose committee positions, or like things that are not governing a person's behavior or conduct, but things that, like, we're entitled to set our own sort of how we operate and set assignments. Anyway, just food for thought, spitballing. I'm not really wedded to any thought, but.
Ms. Phillips.
I mean, we could definitely look into that further, but we can't, with behavior, with code of conducts, we can't remove a councillor from committees. You might be able to if they didn't attend the committees, but isn't that, it could still be construed as behavior. So we might want to get further legal on that. This has created an interesting dynamic, even when we talk about attendance at meetings. There is something in the MGA of a certain number of meetings, consecutive meetings missed, that you could be removed, and they will actually, I've seen it happen, they will remove you. Our bylaw is more around the behaviors we expect. repercussions are hard to enforce. There's other ways, there's some little things we can do overall, but it is hard to enforce a lot of it, honestly. I think the biggest repercussion, honestly, is you make it clear that these are the expectations of being a counselor, and when the members of the public recognize that, counselors aren't attending the required meetings or the training, or, hey, the town's paid for this conference and they didn't attend, or they only came out for the evenings and that gets out, that you're not getting, the chance of being reelected are lower and the chances of a recall are higher. And then there is also the request to remove a counselor is a new one in there there's some legislation around that. That one's very new. I don't have a lot of background on it, but that one's in there too. Pardon? There is. Yeah, so, yeah, there's new stuff out there, right? So it is a challenging one.
Councillor Mearns.
Not what I was going to say. Just, I guess, to provide some clarity within the wording around training and training plan. Training that is signed up for within that training plan, or is that part of the orientation? Just some clarity on that training, or the other part of that is conferences that are being paid for that you've signed up for. Just to include that in there was the thought.
It does talk about those conferences a little bit later, but I do think we could probably work together and strengthen that wording around the training plan, because we call it something a little bit different. I think it's called our professional development plan as council submits, but we could add in, Ms. Phillips, potentially another line about, council professional development plans are submitted prior to October or prior to November 30th of each year and are approved, and those are the items that are in there. Because we do have a process for that. It's a little bit different on an election year, but maybe that could put some teeth in.
And with your comments, Councillor Iwanicki, do we want some requirements around that you must attend X amount of training in a year? Because I mean, technically we say submit your professional development plan, but if someone says, I don't want to take anything, are we saying mandatory is you need to take, is there anything that we want required, or is it just we submit the plan and then it's approved by the mayor, which is I think how we do it right now? And
here's an interesting, we've come a long way in our training plan over the last couple of years, I'll say, and council who's been around for a while could certainly say this. We used to just have one budget and some people did all the things, some people did none. Now we have some processes in place that if you haven't spent your budget by a certain date, council can reallocate it to group training, and we have a few other things that I don't mind, because some trainings are more expensive than others. And some people are at different places. If you've attended the same conference so many years in a row, you might be looking to do a more advanced training, or you may have already taken most of the entry courses. So I do love that we've changed, and I actually love some of the flexibility we have. Council, it used to actually say, so for a conference like FCM, every year it was the mayor plus 2 councillors. And then for this conference, it was, the mayor plus these 2, and it really prescribed that. And we had some councillors that did all the training, and then there were some that did none. And then we moved to this model 2 years ago, I believe, that everyone got a budget. You're encouraged to spend it relating to your committees, and often councillors work with me on some suggestions if they can't fill those. And all of a sudden, those that never use their training budgets are able to do so because they have a bit more flexibility to say, well, I couldn't attend FCM because it conflicted with a major work conflict every year, but hey, I've got some time, I'd like to do some extra training in September, or they can pick those things. So we've seen a big uptake and improvement in our training, being more flexible, which I love, but that didn't really change anything within the bylaw. Councillor Mearns.
And I think the training word is, training can be attending a conference. So I like the idea of the professional development plan.
Yeah.
Rather than, because some people think training, I got to take a course, I got to take this or whatever, but actually conference is training as well. So I like the idea of taking training out and put it in your professional development plan.
So we could go further, and council must attend the Alberta Municipality Fall Annual Convention and training, and any other training outlined in their professional development plan approved annually by the mayor. Like, we could put just some more teeth around what that process is. do you think, Councillor Ostindi?
I like the idea of clarifying a bit the training, as Councillor Mern said. Thinking on some of the comments that have been made in the last few minutes, you know, ultimately the political cost is a very rectifying force. And so hopefully we're all, you know, the public will hold us account, even though we cannot hold each other to account right now. But putting that debate aside, the Minister of Municipal Affairs did promise a new code of ethics coming up, and I believe the month is April, potentially. So we might not be in this quagmire much longer, and we may not want to insert certain words in here to hold ourselves to account that will eventually conflict with a code of ethics. So within months, we will have way more clarity around our accountability or the potential for accountability.
We'll just say one random comment. I always think it's so interesting. Some elections, not in our community, but I have seen that be advertised at election time saying, I'm the most fiscally responsible councillor. I didn't spend a dollar of my professional education budget. And I thought, wow, in 4 years you didn't get any better at your role. What a terrible thing to advertise. But some take it a different way. But you mentioned there's that political side of it. How would the public know?
Our council expenses are public. So if anyone wanted to ask that question of how much did the councillors spend, and
But how would they know if they attended,
oh, I see.
is my question.
I mean, they could they could ask. The issue is, we don't always know, right? So, I mean, if you were outright asked, did this councillor attend this training?
And just one more hiccup, those trainings are booked by our EA, so they're not necessarily on a council
Right,
expense
yeah.
report.
Yes, yeah, that's, you know, I have seen communities where there is an actual training sheet that is publicly available that anyone can see all this, every expense chart, you know, that there's an actual GL even or an account that all individual councillor expenses are charged there, so it's transparent and clear in that way. If that was a route we wanted to go, the public could also just ask that question. I mean, they could ask of the councillor, and then, but I mean, that's up to the councillor to be transparent. They could ask, it would be, I wouldn't want to be asked because I don't want to get in the middle of that, but they can ask those questions, and it's not that we can't, not FOIPable anymore, it's ITIA now, but the access to information. But you're right, if somebody signed up and we paid for it, it would be difficult to necessarily know if they attended unless another councillor was attending. But I have seen it where another councillor is attending and the word gets out that this councillor attends, and, you know, I just think of one specific example where they'd show up for, you know, late afternoon and paid for the whole conference, and it got out into the community very quickly because people don't appreciate that, right? The use of responsible use of public funds. Yeah.
Councillor Iwanicki.
And I know I don't want there to be a risk of attaching too much weight to what I would expect on a training plan or a professional development plan or what have you, and aligning it with whatever the code of ethics is going to be. I'm not looking at it from like an ethics standpoint. I'm more looking at it as a deliberative body, what the expectations we would kind of collectively set for each other, right? Because I kind of probably agree with you. I don't think there's going to be a soul that's going to go online and be like, oh, they didn't follow their training plan. That's never going to happen, right? And man, I mean, there might be one person who might do a request, but you know, setting that aside, I'm more looking at it from like, we have the power and authority to set a remuneration, I'm not even gonna say pay policy, gosh darn it. And like we could slash all our pay to zero if we wanted to, right? I'm just saying, like, is there any mechanism that anyone would be interested in looking at and saying, okay, well, Alberta Munis and your training plan, there's a penalty. It's not directed towards someone's conduct. It's not directed toward the behavior. It's not directed toward their ethics, right? Like someone could go kick an attendee at one of the conferences. I am concerned about that, but that's not where my head's at with it. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, should we have something laid out that says you got to do X, Y, Z, and if you don't, this is what happens. And it could be you lose your per diems,
Ms.
just as an
Phillips,
example.
we might be sharing a thought here.
I would recommend instead of a punishment, because we can't control behaviors, you could change the pay grid where you could say, the base rate right now is here. Actually, the base rate's gonna be here and then get paid for more per diems. Right now, there's a lot included in the per diems. So you could do it more that way where it's per diems, or I think that would be the easiest way actually, to still achieve that same level of pay as long as you're attending a reasonable amount. And I'm not saying going to everything, because not everyone does that, but to say, you get a per diem for the first community activity that you attend, and you get a per diem for, this conference, and maybe a different pay grid based on your actual attendance. Because I have seen where and we're not reflective of this, but I have seen where everyone gets this base pay, and then this counselor's on 2 committees and this one's on 12, right? And how fair is it? So, but you guys are pretty well spread out, but you could change it that way, but it wouldn't be a punishment. It would be you get paid for attending, not you don't get paid because you didn't, yeah.
I will say, I would really love to have that discussion if there's any appetite to change, because that is part of this policy. But there are communities that their base honorarium is virtually zero. But all of the things that are included in Sylvan Lake, could be everything from community events to engage, like all of those things that we wouldn't have an additional honorarium for are included, so that it's reflective to the time that each counselor puts in. And I think that's, it does make timesheets a little bit more complicated, but I do think that that is a more transparent model, because everything shows up on your timesheet. And if someone were to ask, right now, only your formal committee meetings show up. If someone did a public information request, that would all be publicly available, what you were at and what you weren't, and it's really easily calculated through there. So, is that, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's getting super complicated. I'm going to put faith in the people that are here. I think I know them at least well enough right now that I wouldn't say that. I would be shocked if someone around this table and Councillor Payne are like, I'm just not going to Alberta Munis. I think that there's a little bit, I think if that starts becoming a problem, that's something to address. But I mean, I think I'm going to basically every conference that I can go to, because I think that learning is the best thing we can do. And I think I trust every single person here to do the same. I don't think that's going to be an issue whatsoever. I think if it starts becoming an issue and we get people that I'm just not going to Alberta Munis, then we can deal with that. But I don't think we want to get too complicated with things. I mean, you do get a per diem for that as well, and it's pretty significant, right? Like, so if you decide not to go, you're losing out on that as well. But I do kind of want to put faith in the group here, that we're going to do what we can to uphold our promises to the community that we're going to be the best counselors that we can. And I have got no signs that that's going to be a problem from this group personally. So
I will jump in to say that this is actually a really recent experience, not at all due to poor counselors. I've been very blessed to work with great counselors, but workloads are very different. A retired counselor who treats this as their full-time job and sits on a committee meeting that meets multiple times per week every single month is a different workload than a counselor who has a full-time job and isn't able to pick up cover meetings for other people and have that flexibility. It just is a different job, and over various time periods, the workload is very different depending on what committees you get on, how intensive that work is, what's currently going on with your advocacy items, and it's not equal to receive the equal amount of pay. Not because anyone's not doing their job or not showing up for things that they've committed to, it's just some counselors are able to take on bigger commitment meetings and committees over others. You're juggling it with a day job.
So what's the issue there though, right? I'm just missing, because I think we're pretty even with our committees, but like, yes, so Holly and I switched to committee, and the committee that she's on now meets way less than the Community Futures committee that I'm on. But we get their per diems for those things, right? So
Yes, let me give a healthcare committee example. Our healthcare committee meets formally once every month. That's the only one you get a per diem for. All of the other meetings, our meeting we had today, all of those are not per diem meetings because they are not formal committee meetings, but the work on that committee is the work of 3 other committees. Because the additional per diem is for meetings that are formal committee meetings with minutes with that, and some are more working committees that just have a lot more in-between work.
So what's the answer to that problem then? Like what is?
That's where if you were able to put in for everything, your per diem be lower, but then everything you do, every subcommittee meeting, every, even lodge is another large one, only the formal meetings can be claimed, but you have a lot of subcommittee meetings and you have a, meeting with this consultant and all of that, none of that is accounted for. So it's just, the solution to equalize that, whether we want to do it or not is a different story, is to lower per diems or lower honorariums and make per diems not necessarily a higher amount, but make them eligible for everything you go to. Ms. Phillips.
So basically, to expand on it, the per diem that you get, the base per diem, includes all your subcommittee meetings, all your volunteer committee meetings, all your community events. Those are part of your per diem overall, right? So that's the idea, is it would be lower and you then literally get paid for everything. And the idea being we'd find a rate that would be similar to the outcome of a year now. Am I correct on that? Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So I'll say my wish, I'm okay with going forward as is, but I do think that this is a really valuable conversation, and that does, Councillor Iwanicki, some of those complaints, it does ensure that those who attend all of the things are rewarded, not necessarily penalized, but kind of penalized if you don't attend. Yeah. Councillor Mearns, Ostindi, did you have a? Iwanicki, sure.
I'm fine to leave it the way it is, and if Municipal Affairs Office is gonna have something come out in potentially, we've heard maybe April, maybe there's an opportunity where we can make some changes with this based on that, right? On, if we have the ability to say that thou shalt, or this will happen, but I would wait to see with that before we make, I'm fine the way it is, so.
Sure. Ms. Phillips, did you have something to jump in?
I'm not sure if I should go into this at all at this point, but with the code of conduct, I will say the direction the province has stated they're going in, and we'll see what happens when it comes out, is that they're pushing that it still will not allow us to control behavior of council other than in this room. And that includes the updates to the procedure bylaw. There was some direction to make a change there, and it wasn't about making all procedure bylaws the same. It was about giving the chair control in the room to remove a councillor if needed from the meeting for being disruptive. So it's really, from what I'm understanding, it's very, and I don't disagree with waiting, but just so you're aware, the conversations with Municipal Affairs has been largely around this room. So, and then the other controlling of behavior would be more around health and safety in terms of, how do we protect our staff? And again, I'm not talking about this specific room, but some councillors that's having to be able to step in to protect staff from bullying and harassment and those kinds of things. It would fall under different legislation, but not a code of conduct. But you never know, so.
Councillor Ostindi.
I was just thinking about the idea of, I don't want to see the timesheet get too much more complicated than it is. One thing I understood with regards to subcommittee meetings was if there's an agenda-based meeting, if these subcommittees are formal committees, not just working groups or casual groups, if we can use that word, they're agenda-based, minutes-based, then they would be eligible. I think that was one distinction made at one point with lodge board meetings or subcommittee meetings. And then focusing on the words we had where this conversation all spun off on is clarifying this idea of what is a professional development plan, giving it some meat, give it some direction. I like that idea. And then the rest will fall out as we see progress from provincial government and see, do we need to clarify it better in the future? And thinking about Councillor Johansson's, your comments about the, what we're doing right now feels pretty good. But I always say sometimes these policies are for that time when things don't feel too good, and and then you have the policy to fall back on, anticipating what might be possible in the future, hoping not.
Yeah, and then I'll echo what Councillor Estindi just said, because it's exactly where my head was at, was actually looking backwards to look forwards, right? I was looking at when I applied to put my paperwork in to be a councillor, and frankly was confused about really what the scope and scale of the job is, right? And, you know, they talk about invagaties, and that's fine for certain things, but like if you're gonna have a professional plan, what does that bloody plan look like, right? So anyone who's coming 4 years from now at the next election and applying to become a councillor knows what they have to do, right? And yeah, maybe we might not be able to penalize them or do anything to them, but at least they know what to expect coming in, right? Like, and focusing on that aspect of things. Not to throw Councillor Payne under the bus, he's not here, I don't think he wants a complicated timesheet either. I've heard him once or twice say that he's not a fan. Overly complicating that, I think, is maybe not a good idea, but anyway.
So, sure, Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, you know, because when I look at it, is the mayor, the all-inclusive part, is that new? Is that so? Okay. Yeah, I think maybe this could be a discussion for another time, obviously, but I like the idea of an all-inclusive, and I think if there's a way that could pertain to councillors as well, but with the aspect of these are the things, this is the job you have to do, these are the things you have to go to, and if you don't, then you know you don't get paid your salary. I'm more just spitballing here, but because I'm with Councillor Iwanicki in that sense, and again, I think we've got a great group here. I think we've got a group of people that are really want to do good and do well, and I don't think this is going to be an issue for us. But yeah, for the future and stuff like that, like it's it kind of makes sense where if there is a counselor that's, because I'll be honest, like that would annoy the crap out of me if someone just wasn't showing up and wasn't doing their training and wasn't trying to get better, and like that would make, you know, like that would be annoying, right? Because that's not what people want, that's not what people expect. And so I don't know if those things are up, you know, for conversation where, you know, counselor went to a certain all-inclusive salary, but you're expected to show up to all your committees and all your subcommittees and all your training and ribbon cuttings and parades and all that stuff, right? So I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing, because I do agree that we can't be having people that are just deciding to not do the job because they just don't want to, right? So I don't know what the answer is, but you know, maybe with the mayor going to an all-inclusive per annum or salary or whatever you want to call it, I mean, maybe that's an option for councillors too, and then that takes away the confusion of the timesheet issues and making sure they're in on the second all the time too.
So maybe, I'm not hearing real consensus around that portion of it, but what I am hearing consensus is around beefing up that item A3. And I think we could potentially task administration, and I can assist in a little bit of that, but in finding a way to elaborate on that. This is first reading, so I think we can probably send it off with that and see if we could potentially either have an option or just have some beefed up language come back here. Ms. Phillips.
Sorry, it's actually a policy, so.
Oh, policy, sorry.
So we just won't adopt it tonight, yes.
Yes, which I think at least I expected us to have, and then we'll see a final copy of it. So we could come back with something a little bit different at the next meeting. Do we feel okay about that? Okay. Let's continue on. There's nothing on the next couple pages 4, 5, but if anyone has a comment, please let me know. If not, we'll move along to item number 6. Looking forward to listening to you debate. Councilor Burns.
Yeah, item 3H, I actually think that should be 20 lieu days as honorariums for vacation days for the mayor. We have it in our bylaw that, you know, we're allowed to miss 4 meetings. I think we should honor the mayor's position that would give them, 20 days is 4 weeks of holiday. And so I would like to see that as 20 days.
Councillor Iwaniki?
Just flagging as a practical matter, like how would this even be tracked? Right, like the mayor's job is a 7-day-a-week job, so. Anyway, setting it at 20, I think is a nice broad, wide open number that is easy enough to attain. I just don't know how we would ever actually be able to track or follow or enforce it, so.
Ms. Phillips?
Honestly, my intention isn't to actually track it. It's more to give that permission that if the mayor is someone like myself, the work ethic, I need to be told I'm allowed to go do this, or, so if it's Christmas or it's summer and you just, that she can, as long as she's, and as long as she's not missing too many meetings as per our other policy, right? That to say, take some time away. But the other one is, this is our current mayor, but this is also for future mayors. I know how our current mayor works. We want to make sure that there's enough in here to give that guideline, so if someone new comes in, they know what the expectations of the role are as well. So.
Yeah. I'll just add a fun fact. A year or so before the last election, I was asked to do an annual tracking of my hours just to learn where this fits. And I'll say the current role, you will well exceed these hours. There's really no concern, but it is very varied. So that's where, the logistics of tracking would definitely be more difficult. There is times of year where you have made up 2 months in the course of 1 month of work hours, and then there is times where it's a part-time job. So I like that we've included those annual hours per year to give some parameters, but knowing that this is on an annual basis, because it is definitely not 37.5 hours per week. I would say very few weeks hit that. You're either way over or way under, and that's just the part of the job. But it does lay that out, and I think that's really important as future people sit in this role to know that, this is kind of what you could expect. Councillor Oosthuizen.
I'll just say I'm comfortable with this, knowing that it's really a signal. I was going to go for the higher number 15, but I'm fine with the 20 that was mentioned. And given that this is so new, I can imagine when the next remuneration committee gets together, they'll probably review this, and we will be forced to review it as well at that point in time, 3.5 years from now, or 3 years from now. And at some point, I would say, another 10,000 citizens will be talking about this with regards to councillors, or, whatever number of years. As our community grows, the workload will slowly change for all the political figures involved.
Any other comments? Councillor Bilodeau.
I'm trying to formulate how I ask this. My concern for the 10, 15, or 20 is based on mayor experience. So for yourself, for example, you've been in this role, so you're very efficient at the work you do and you're experienced. So we put something into play and we say 20 hours in lieu, and then potentially you aren't the mayor in 4 years. We have a new mayor, and how does that apply to another mayor? I'm wondering how we put something that is so pertinent to, or maybe it's not, because maybe the next mayor might work more hours. So in a typical wage situation, because I come from a culture that is, you get paid by the hour, you get salary, and based on the number of years, you grow your weeks off. So I'm just wondering how we just pick whether it's 10, 15, or 20, and how does that look moving forward for the future for other mayors? Because it really should be sort of timed earned, and I'm curious about what we've done for the mayor in the past. Was it standard for a mayor to get 4 weeks off? Then it wouldn't seem unlikely for the current mayor to also get that now. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
We've never had a full-time mayor on paper, so we are the, whatever we decide is what is.
Right.
For the first time ever.
Right.
Ms. Phillips.
I could comment on that a little bit. If you relate a mayor position to being somewhere like a senior manager or a director or a CAO coming into a municipal organization. Because municipalities, we are a little weird. Because of the tenure and the position, it's not uncommon to start them at that higher level. It's not, you start at square one, you usually bring your tenure with you. So if you looked at it that way, that a mayor's getting voted in as that more elite position, it does kind of match the culture within municipalities, if that helps at all. I think the biggest thing is, you know, if you based it on just lieu hours, as I said, you know, the lieu hour being salary, you don't technically get extra hours. It's very common again in municipalities. That is the new norm, is that work-life balance. But I can guarantee you the mayor accumulates way more than that in lieu hours in a year. So I think if you look at it more that way, they're putting in more than that. So it's the extra hours to say, we know you work a lot, so work-life balance is important, right? So that would be my comment is, and that's why I wrote it in here. I just think that work-life balance is so important, but if that makes you, yeah.
Council, how do we feel for a final number there? I'll just say, your current mayor will never be taking 4 weeks of vacation. So this isn't really a direct conversation to me. That's just not in my annual plan. But if we want to do a round on that number, I'm just going to opt out because there's enough of you to outvote me.
Yeah, I'm fine with the 20-hour lieu days, sorry.
Yeah, I concur with the 20 for sure.
Councilor Iwaniki?
20.
Councilor Oosthuizen?
20 is good.
Councilor
Works for me.
Great. Let's never awkwardly talk about that again in my time here, please. We'll move along to page 7. No changes proposed here, but this is really at a future time if we ever wanted to talk about that restructuring. For council, just a reminder, we do have an external committee that meets, talks about remuneration. They provide us recommendations, and that is done in the last year of your council term, and it isn't effective until after the next election. So you'd be deciding for the next folks sitting in your seat. Typically is standard practice. Of course, we can edit that at any time, but I'll say politically, I think that is, it's not something you would commonly do midterm, but we do always have the option. It is our policy. Next, we'll move along to page 9. Comments? No. 10. I do like that you've added in this 7C. I think that just gives it a little bit more teeth there. 11. And then 12, 13, and I won't go into the appendix there. Any further comments on this item? Great. In terms of process here, knowing that we want to see this come back with just that minor tweak, how do we do that?
I don't think we need a motion. I think we can just bring it back.
Just carry it back. Yeah. Wonderful. Any concerns with that, council? Great. Council, let's call a 10-minute recess here, and then we will come back in for our correspondence and information items. Thank you. we will call the meeting back to order. We will come back in under correspondence and information items. We have a whole listing there for our information. Council, is there any you have questions or would like to chat about? Councillor Stindy.
Reading fire department stats, I quite impressed how many medical assists the fire department does. And a question, you know, for a day when our fire chief is here is just that idea of like, do our crews, are they trained? And I know they have some training for sure in the paramedics, paramedics, I'm not sure. But it was a question about training and do they feel ready to constantly see so many? Because they are 8% of the time in all their call-outs first on scene. And a quarter of their calls are medical assists, of all calls. So I thought, wow, I think about firefighting and all the training they do, and do they feel prepared? Are we preparing them for all those medical assists?
I could invite Director Lebsack to come up and comment on that.
Your Worship and Council. I would say that without speaking directly for them, that yes, they're well enough trained for the purpose that they serve. So the reason we go to so many medical assist calls is if there isn't an ambulance within 15-minute range, then fire department is the first call out. Okay. Which that would be a bigger issue to us than whether we're trained to attend those calls. But a lot of those calls we are first on scene. We'll do, each crew has a different range of medical personnel on their crew, from first aid to advanced first aid to paramedics, that kind of thing. And so each crew is set up to respond to those calls, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Lebsack, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, in a follow-up comment on a different stat in the same department, I noticed 2.3% of all the call-outs are on the lake surface, and that ties in with tourism advocacy, because here we are again. I mean, many of our residents are on the lake, and I suspect the odd call-out is for our own residents, but it's, even though it's a small number, it's still one more example of how we support the region, support tourism by doing call-outs on a lake surface that has nothing to do with our town directly. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that thought out.
On the medical note, Mr. Lebsack, I'm curious if you know, because I know a number of our firefighters are also paramedics or have advanced healthcare training. Do you know what percentage or how many that might account for that?
Your Worship, no, you caught me on that one. I was going to answer the same thing. We have them on every crew, but the actual percentage, no, I'll have to get back to you on that as to what the percentage is. So we do have both paramedics and advanced first aid on every crew.
I do just think that's a neat thing to draw attention to, that so many who have gone on to receive advanced training, become a paramedic, become something else in the medical field, are still interested in being volunteers on our department and sharing those skills in more way than one. It's a real asset to our team, I believe. Additional questions, Councillor Ostindi.
On a different topic, I'm just wondering, just to understand the business of the town, Red Deer Catholic Separate Schools received a check from us for a very large sum, and I was wondering what service are we paying for, or what reason is that? It's in the tune of $156,000, so I was wondering, there must be joint use agreements that maybe we're paying for, or I just wondered what that was.
Sure.
That would be the school requisition that we collect on behalf of the province.
Oh, that was just the requisition. Okay, just the tax transfer. Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? I had a couple. One is around the, what is the name of this report? The special events report. And one stat that I didn't see that, maybe I'm just flagging this for strategic planning. It's a conversation I'm really looking forward to having. But I see some of the information on those external events. But I'd be curious if we have any stats year over year, how that has changed, how many external events are hosted in Sylvan Lake that we do nothing other than, you know, some minor support, but it's really an external organizer and mostly external funder. Is that something we track?
It's not something that we've tracked in the past, but I know Mayor Hansen, I think you brought that up in the Q2 report, so it's something that we will be tracking and have started tracking for 2026. It is difficult because not all external special events happen on town property, but it's still quite relevant. So for example, White Frog Cafe might have a maker's market, which would still be an event, however, it doesn't go through the special event process that we would consider for an event, so we don't track that type of information. The only time that we get that is if they're submitting their event to go up on the website, so on the Visit Sylvan Lake website on things to do. That's the only way that we can track some of that data, but we're certainly tracking more of the external ones that we have on town property and trying as much as we can to capture the other ones. The other piece that's really key is, let's say in 25, we had a special event that maybe was hosted on the pier on town property, and the following year they outgrew that space and now they're on private property, so maybe they're at the golf course. Still really relevant and important to note that. However, it's important to also consider the reasons on why maybe they're not on town property, for example.
Thank you. My other comment is just on the TDC, the Tourism Development Meeting Minutes. I recognize that there's 2 sets attached to there, but as I read the first one and it's almost a year old, I thought, wow, this is quite irrelevant at this point. Like, it has just been so much time, and I'm wondering if there's any way that we could start to see draft meeting minutes in a more timely fashion within a month of the meeting date is really, or, you know, within 2 months of the meeting date, because when they're not making their way to council until 10 months, you know, later, there's really not a lot that that we can continue that conversation of. And I know that's hard because some committees only meet quarterly, which means they're not approving their draft minutes until then, but I'm not sure if we have any options there, but I am really interested in seeing them a bit quicker, if possible. Council, any other items on within that category? Nope, seeing none. Council request for information updates. We've got none listed there, but we do have one notice of motion that we are ready to discuss. Council Mearns.
So I just make the motion again, is that correct?
Please.
Yeah. Make a motion the council direct administration to prepare a report outlining the process, requirements, and financial implications for the town of Sylvan Lake to pursue city status, and furthermore, that administration provide recommendations for next steps.
We have a motion on the floor. Would we like to discuss, or I'll open it up for any discussion or debate? Yeah, certainly, please.
Not so much the debate, I guess we can just discuss. Not a question, really. I'm totally going to support this motion to investigate. I'll admit a bias that I prefer the name town, and many of the people that I've talked to me and personally have said the same thing. However, I've told them, you know, I have to keep an open mind. My bias is to the words town. However, if someone hands me $10 million with the word city attached, you know, I am going to be greatly, greatly influenced. So maybe we'll become the city of the town of Sylvan Lake. But anyways, so we'll keep an open mind.
Absolutely. Councillor Johannesson.
Yeah, I would echo those as well. I think I made a Facebook post about this to get feedback from people, and I think the knee-jerk reaction is to say that we're only doing this to, you know, for nefarious reasons, which is I find funny on social media. But I think it's something that we should explore, because I think if we immediately shut down things without all the full information, I think we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to the people and to the town. So I think it's something we have to explore. I think that's our role as council, is all we're doing is exploring the pros and cons. And to be honest, I don't know enough about it, and I would like to learn more. And then I think if we actually have a detailed report by the intelligent people that make this report, then we can go back to the citizens with those reasons why we're, you know, making the change or not making the change. But I don't see the harm in exploring this. I think it's something that I would support to get that report, and so that really we can get more information on that and to be able to hand out that information. I think shutting anything down would be, like I said, a disservice, so I would support this, yeah.
Councilor Martins.
Yeah, just a couple reasons why I brought this forward. The first one was a longtime resident, probably been here 40 years. And her comment to me was, you know, we've come a long ways. I've been here for 33 years, 3,500 people. And it's kind of that, she mentioned it as a pride thing. You know, take pride in our town, the way we've grown, the way we've done things, some of the staff that have been here for that many years, and really to take pride in our community. You know, and I understand, like, I like the town of Sylvan Lake better, but when someone asks me where I live, I don't say the town of Sylvan Lake. I say Sylvan Lake, right? Regardless of city or town. So that did echo with me about the fact that, yeah, we're not that small town anymore. We still have that small town feeling. But there's some opportunities. The town of Beaumont went to a city, and they saw a substantial increase in commercial development and commercial tax base. So if that's one of the things that comes back through administration and can offset some of our residential tax rate, then I think that's something worth exploring. So those are a couple of reasons why I brought this forward, and yeah, obviously it's something that I'm going to support and look forward to coming what administration has to bring back. So.
Councilor Iwanicki.
Yeah, and I'll just second what Councilor Johannesson said. Like, people are talking about it online now. Give that as much weight as you wish. But I don't want to come to them with empty hands at this point either. So may as well look and see, and then we can make a decision from there.
I'll jump in and say I support this motion. It's an information fact-finding mission. I think it's probably something we should, at the rate of growth that we have, every 4 or 5 years, it probably should just be a reoccurring report to just make sure that nothing's changed. And it helps me answer the question on either side of it. Why haven't we become one? Why would we become one? The information changes. The province has a lot to do with that. I think it's wise to bring that back. I will say, not every conversation, I do think, I always want to have a lens of caution with notices of motion, and I say this as someone who probably has put forward the most of them, is that, yes, it doesn't hurt to get in any information, but it takes staff time every single time, and we could tie up an entire employee for the whole year if we each got information to get one of these reports that will probably take a couple of weeks to produce, and reaching out to different municipalities every single time. So I am a little bit selective, but this is a big conversation that we just need to know the information on, and I very much support it. And whether now's the time or not, that's the discussion that we'll look forward to having. But if it's not the time, we probably should still just have this come back in a couple of years, because the information will change. It's good to have. Seeing no, yeah, Councilor Iwanicki.
I have no idea if this is the time to mention it, but I'm going to say it. Whatever report we receive, if we can get something that's like a one-pager too, like comms-wise, that we could just share, it'd be quite handy. Just food for thought for whenever the report's ultimately produced.
I think, yes. Ms. Phillips, and then...
Just clarity on like every report we bring, or this one specific? Okay. And to be clear, we also are required to do public engagement on this one. We are not required to do a vote or referendum, but we are required to get feedback to provide to the province if we decide to make any changes. But yes, we can definitely do that.
Councillor Bilodeau.
I just wanted to support what Councillor Iwanicki said, because I like highlights, but people want to see it too, because if anyone hasn't noticed, this is a lot of people, like, there's a lot of fear in the community, because it's change. But we need to play both sides, the advantages, the disadvantages, and here it is in clear black and white. And so that's all I wanted to say was it's exciting because we need the information, so we aren't missing anything, but we need to communicate that as well. And I think on this specific subject, we just want to make sure that we're engaging the community with the results what we get.
That's great. And I would say for this one specifically, I'll just plant the seed with council. When we receive that information report, that's a great time to bring that up again. Of, okay, we've received this, we'd like to share this, we have no interest in moving forward, we're not, we'll have that opportunity as well. So, but I think there will be a lot of interest. Ms. Phillips?
If I can hand it off to our communications, Mr. Waldo?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a really easy thing to do. I think that anytime there's conversation around this table, if there's an opportunity to share that with the public, you know, this report, I'm sure will have a lot of information in it, and there's so much value in having something that tries to take a quick snapshot depending on details. So it's the challenge of keeping such a robust report with some specific highlights. But the benefit is that this report, as presented to council, will also be available in all full detail as well. So we'll make sure that folks know, residents know where to get and access all of the information for those that just want a quick snapshot or they really want to dissect everything. So we'll have both at our disposal. And again, as Ms. Phillips says, as we move forward, if that is the direction, then we'll make sure that everybody knows where to get it and how to access it.
That's great. We have a motion on the floor to receive or to have an information report come back. Is there anything else we need to discuss on this? Great. All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Ostindi?
Would this report also include commentary about how it affects our industries in town? The one obvious one, tourism, and how we market it as one of the pros and cons. Can it delve that deep, or would it just be on the governance and granting that we would receive?
So our intent would be to get as much information, so how it impacts tourism, industry, drawing commercial, how it's impacted other communities, how the province views you as city versus town. Is there an impact? Are there grants that we can get? Things like that. And a big one is Highway 20. I mean, I think that's a game changer right there, is that if you become a town or if you become a city, often that becomes your responsibility. So we're already prepared to take those steps to get more information. So as much as we can provide, I have a team of about 4 of us that we're planning to work on this one to make sure that it's as robust as possible.
Thank you.
And non-biased. Both sides, pros and cons, very important.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's great. A motion on the floor by Councillor Mearns. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried unanimously. Next, we'll move into a closed meeting. Councillor Mearns, do you have a motion for us?
You bet. I make a motion the council move to a closed meeting to discuss advice from officials, and this item shall remain confidential pursuant to Section 29(1) of the Access to Information Act, SA 2024, CA-1.4, and Section 197(2) of the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, MM-26.
Excellent. Thank you. All those in favor? And opposed? That is carried unanimously. Council will head to the back. Thank you. Back. Councillor Johannesson, do you have a motion for us?
Yeah, that closed session concludes and council reverts back to the regular meeting of council.
Excellent. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried unanimously. Councillor Mearns.
Make a motion the council move to a closed meeting to discuss advice from official electoral district, and this item shall remain confidential pursuant to section 29(1) of the Access to Information Act, SA 2024, CA 1.4, and section 197(2) of the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000 M26.
Excellent. Thank you. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried unanimously. Let's head back to the back.
that that closed session concludes and council reverts back to the regular meeting of council.
Ms. Phillips? Oh, okay. All those in favor? And opposed? That is carried unanimously. Ms. Phillips? Council, let's be safe and put a motion on the books, but really try to keep it in within a few minutes of the time, if that's okay. I will make that motion to extend past 7 p.m. if necessary. All those in favor? And opposed? That is carried unanimously. Councillor Mearns.
I make a motion that council move to a closed meeting to discuss a legal matter, solicitor-client privilege, and this item shall remain confidential pursuant to Section 32(1) of the Access to Information Act, SA 2024, CA-1.4, and Section 197(2) of the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, CM26.
Excellent. Thank you. All those in favor? And opposed? That is carried unanimously. Back we go. Listen.
First off, sorry, Jolene, that we're keeping you so late on your birthday. It's quite rude. I move that closed session concludes and council reverts back to the regular meeting of council.
Excellent. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried unanimously. Council, we've reached the end of our agenda. Have a good evening.